This happened in Michoacan, Mexico. So this guy says that growing up, him and his older brother had to share a room. He says that they had a habit of always staying up till like 11 at night on their phones. He admits that every time he would see his older brother put his phone away, he did too, because he was so scared of laying in the room while his brother was asleep and him on his phone, like surrounded by darkness. He does say that he grew out of that fear of like his brother being asleep and him staying up. So after a few years, he did end up staying up on his phone till like 3 or 4 in the morning. He says that even though he would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, sometimes he would get a little bit panicked because we all know that not good things happen around that time. He does say that from time to time his fear would get the best of him, so he would end up putting music on his phone and falling asleep to that. He also admits that there were times where he would remind himself that he was alone, awake, everyone's asleep, total darkness, so he would literally put the blanket over his head and continue to watch videos. Even though his eyes would get red from how tired he was, he almost saw it like a challenge. He wanted to stay awake and like face his fear. So when he was around 7 years old, he says that he stayed up on his phone again, but this time he saw something weird through his window. He says that he kept seeing something like flying back and forth. That he did have a curtain on his window. It was like dark and brown, but at nighttime, since it was much lighter outside, you can see when something darker would pass by, which is how he would see that thing just flying back and forth. He said that at first he wanted to tell himself that maybe there were birds, but the way that he would see it flying back and forth, like it didn't seem like a bird. And also he said that he would almost also see them land on the roof of the house, and when he would try to take a peek, there would be nothing on the roof. He also told himself, like, what if I'm seeing these things because of how late I'm staying up? Because he would get tired and he wouldn't go to sleep. But he says that he doesn't think it was him, because there was a time where he actually just removed the whole curtain because he wanted to see what the fuck was flying back and forth, and nothing would fly by and there was nothing on the roof. He doesn't know how he grew the courage to do this, but one of those nights he had a plan. He literally opened the curtain to the point where only one eye was outside and one eye was inside the room, and he stayed there for a good amount of time and nothing passed by. And as soon as he quit, he saw something fly back and forth again. He thought to himself, like, what if they are witches? Like, what if they're messing with me? And of course they would mess with me because I'm 7 years old, and what if they want to take me away? He says that after a while, like whatever it was flying back and forth just became his new norm, and he really didn't worry about it anymore. That was until one night where he was laying in bed on his phone and he heard the craziest animal sounds coming from his dogs and chickens outside. And a few moments after hearing all that, he started to hear something coming from his window. Something that sounded like somebody was in pain, getting closer and closer. He got scared, but immediately opened up that curtain and looked to see what was outside, and again, there was nothing. And even though he didn't see anything outside of his window, his dogs and chickens were still going crazy. In that moment, he was so scared that he decided to pick his phone up and look up a video of like prayers and just let it play throughout the night. He said that in his crazy moment, he picked one and didn't really think about it, and when it started playing, the actual prayer was in Latin, so he didn't really understand what they were saying. He got a little freaked out, but then the priest in the video started talking normal and he understood him, but then the priest would go back into talking into that Latin language and almost like screaming it, so he was like, what the fuck is going on? He said that he was so scared that he didn't even have the energy to like get up, get his phone, change it to something different, because he just couldn't move. And in that moment is when someone on the other end of that room called his name. It was his brother, of course, who had woken up by the sound of that Latin prayer that the priest was screaming. His brother told him to shut that off because instead of sounding like a prayer, it sounded like something satanic, and he needed to turn that shit off now. He scared his brother, and of course he understood how scary it was, because imagine being in deep sleep and you get woken up by a priest screaming something in Latin. I would have had a heart attack. So he shuts it off and tries to go to sleep, even though he continues to see something pass by and hear that weird sound of that thing that was getting closer to his window. The next day, his brother did tell his mom what happened that night. His mom didn't get mad at him, but she did ask why he was trying to play a prayer in the middle of the night. All he told her was that it was because he couldn't go to sleep. He admits that he couldn't tell his mom what he was seeing through the window. It wasn't until years later where this conversation came up in his family, and that's when he he finally admitted to them what he would see at his window. He said his family didn't have this like crazy reaction because they thought the same thing he did when he first saw it, which was that they could have been animals. So again, this was only a few years later, which meant that they were now teenagers and still were in that same room. The family still lived in that same house. So because his family didn't have that big reaction, he was like, I'm gonna prove it to them that this is not an animal. So he decided that that night when he would see that thing in the window, because he was still seeing it, he was gonna wake his brother up and make him watch with him. Unfortunately, his brother saw nothing and neither did he. Apparently, he believed that that thing would only appear when it was him alone and not when anyone else was watching. And that was the case, because when his brother did fall asleep, he ended up seeing that thing fly back and forth on his window. He also attempted to record what was passing by with his phone, but he says that it was so dark that his phone couldn't even make out the things he was seeing with his own eyes. He says that every night that he goes to sleep and he sees those things, he remembers that time where something was like weeping by his window, getting closer and closer. He says that today he's still living in that house, and fortunately, he hasn't seen anything, but he knows that eventually they're just gonna come back and he's gonna see these things again. He says that as he's typing this story, he is laying in his bed in the middle of the night and he is terrified that he might see them again, and also terrified that they may do something more than just fly through his window. He says he's gonna put his phone away and attempt to go to sleep, and hopes that these witches or whatever it is outside his window will eventually leave him alone. This story comes from Relatos Oscuros, and if you want to listen to it, this is what the video will look like.
I got my snacks, so get yours, because what? I gotta push my nose ring back in. Leave me alone. Whatever. But can you imagine getting witchcraft done on you through your own wig? Yeah. So there's this girl. Let's call her Lily. So Lily's birthday's coming up. So of course she want to look good for her birthday. She got her this really nice wig. She found this stylist on Instagram that does really good. Like, her installs eats. Anyway, she gets her wig, she hits up the stylist, she books the stylist. The stylist tells her that she has to drop off her wig like way before her install. And she's like, okay, cool, because she wants her wigs customized because the stylist, her installs eat. So boom, she drops off the wig, she meets the stylist, she's really nice. And she's like super excited because she's about to look good. So the day before her birthday, that's the day she booked. She goes to get her hair done. She gets there. Stylist is really nice. Place is really nice. She sees her wig and her wig looks good. So she's excited. Like, she's about to be a bad bitch for her birthday. Gets her install. It turns out really nice, really cute. She leaves very happy. The next day was her birthday and she had a birthday dinner planned for the next day. She also had like other appointments for the rest of that day, like nails and stuff like that. So she went and got that done. And towards the end of the day, she started to get a headache. But she didn't really think much of it because she did just get her hair done, so the braids are probably kind of tight. So she doesn't really mind the headache. She just takes some painkillers that night before she goes to sleep, hoping that, it'll work. Tomorrow she'll be fine. Tomorrow's her birthday. So the day comes, it's her birthday. She's excited. Everybody's wishing her a happy birthday. However, she noticed that the painkillers that she took isn't really working because her headache is getting worse. But she's not trying to let that ruin her birthday. It's her birthday. So her dinner reservations were set for about 6 o'clock. But by the time it got to 6 o'clock, her headache was literally unbearable. But it's her birthday, and this is her birthday dinner, so she doesn't even want to touch her head. So she goes to the dinner. She is in pain, like to the point where she started to cry. And when she's tries to feel her head and feel the braids under, because she even tried to oil it, the braids didn't seem that tight. She was touching it. There was definitely a little bit of space in between. So it wasn't really that tight. But why does she have a headache that much? Because at this point, it's not even a headache anymore. It's a migraine. So she's like, maybe it's one of the products that she used. She's probably allergic to or something. So she's like, after this dinner, this wig is coming out. That's exactly what she did. After her birthday dinner, she took that wig out so fast and took those braids out so fast. But that didn't stop the headache because the headache was there for another week. At that point, she went to the hospital. Goes to the hospital, nothing's wrong. They couldn't find no reason why she had this migraine that's so bad. She wasn't allergic to anything, nothing. It wasn't until she was talking to one of her friends one time, and she was explaining how this headache, she just can't get rid of it ever since she got her hair done. And the friend was like, oh, who did your hair? And she showed the friend the stylist Instagram. And the friend was like, oh, I'm surprised she even did your hair. She don't even like you like that. The girl's like, what? What do you mean? Like, I don't have no beef with this girl. I don't even know her. The friend is like, oh, you do know her. You just don't remember her. She's from our high school. She went to school with us. Lily's like, she did? Friend is like, yeah, she definitely went to our high school. I didn't notice her because y'all didn't have any classes, but she definitely went to our school. And she doesn't like you. Lily's like, why doesn't she like me? I didn't do anything to this girl. Now, a little background. Lily was very popular in high school, like popular girl. But the thing is, she wasn't a mean popular girl. She was one of those nice ones. Her current boyfriend is her high school sweetheart. Turns out, old girl, Stylist, had the biggest crush on her boyfriend from high school. She had plans to make a move on him right before they got together. So in her mind, she's thinking Lily stole him from her. And that's delusional because the stylist and the boyfriend never spoke. They went to school together, but they never spoke. Upon finding this out, she's like, oh, this may be deeper than I think because Lily's not stupid. Lily's Caribbean, so she knows about witchcraft. Lily's like, oh, I think she got me. So immediately she went to her grandmother about it. She explained the whole situation to her grandmother. Her grandmother's like, yeah, it sounds like she might have did something on you, but let me find out. Bring me the wig and I'm going to find out. So Lily gives her grandma the wig. Her grandma leaves. About 2 days later, she gets a phone call from her grandma. The wig, yes, she indeed did witchcraft on the wig. Except it didn't work the way that she wanted it to. All of Lily's hair was supposed to fall out. I mean, like bald. Was supposed to give Lily alopecia. However, that's not what happened because Lily's Caribbean. Lily's protected. So Lily really only got like a really bad headache, which she still has at the moment after explaining everything to Grandma. She still has the headache. Grandma tells Lily, you need to come over. I know how to get rid of the headache. Now that we know the root of what's causing the headache because the doctors couldn't find out, we're going to take care of it. So Lily is like shocked because she didn't even know this girl. Like, why would you? What's the point? So she goes to her grandma's house. Her grandma makes her drink this tea and she takes this herb bath. Grandma had like all these herbs in the bath and she had like a handful of those herbs and she was patting her all over her head with it and all over her body. And then Grandma prayed for her right after. And I kid y'all not, after she did that, headache was gone. Lily never really confronted the girl about it. She just know like, yeah, I can't mess with you. But it just goes to show, like, people will really try to get you through anything. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram. Yeah. If you want to send me your own stories, follow me on Instagram and send it through there. I'm going to put my ad. Well, it's the same ad for all social media platforms. But I'm going to put it right here.
Let's talk about witchcraft in Romania and how it backfired. This is an allegedly true spooky scary storytime submission submitted by someone named A. And if you've followed this series for a while, you may remember A's name from submitting the story about witnessing an exorcism in Romania. And I've gone back and forth with A. She's incredibly sweet, and she's self-described as a 42-year-old Romanian mother. She's an animal lover, and she's an Orthodox Christian. And when I shared her previous story, so many people reached out and they were like, oh my gosh, does she have any more stories? Here you go. She's actually the first double submission to Spooky Scary Storytime as someone who has submitted more than one story. And before I get into the story, she started her email off with a warning, and she says she highly encourages anyone who hears this to not mock, play with, test these things, not to embrace any of the practices that she mentions, because once you open a door, you may not be prepared for the dark forces that come through. She's sharing this for educational purposes. And so she says that witches have existed in Romania since always. They are sort of an alternative to the church. People may go to witches for what they feel the church can't solve. Whatever problem the church couldn't solve through prayer, the witch promised to provide for a price. And every village had a witch known as a baba. And the babas could do a number of things. They could help cleanse your house of bad spirits. They could help you find love. They could break up families. They could help you steal someone's husband or wife. They could help you predict your future. They could make someone sick. They could help you untie family curses. They could tell you who your enemies were and who had cursed you. They could make someone sick with madness. They could help you steal household fortunes. They could even mark someone for death. So it's safe to say they could do a number of things, both good and bad. But A says she wonders, isn't it bad to force destiny to obtain something that you were never meant to obtain? Says many of the babas are older women that share physical similarities, like a white or missing eye. Many of them have a missing leg or finger. Some walk with a limp. Others have fish-like skin. And these babas are considered marked, but there are other normal-looking babas as well. Families who have lost someone are often wary of babas at funerals because babas can often be found after a service pretending to clean up when really they're collecting the hair and nails of the deceased. Use these items for powerful spells and rituals involving curses of sickness and death. And you can often find them performing these rituals in the middle of the night between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. In forests near large bodies of water. If you happen to be out at that hour, it's not uncommon to find one, and they'll often be surrounded by candlelight and whispering to someone or something invisible. But if you see one, you better keep it moving, because it's known that they don't like to be spied on. If you ask a Baba to help you, they often don't like to be paid in money. They would rather you give them fine jewelry, your watches, or something a little bit more personal. And there's sort of a rumor that they used to ask for your firstborn child. This was thought to be because they often didn't have children of their own, and so no descendants to either act as a servant or to pass on their spiritual knowledge to. This practice of asking for children is sort of outdated, but it does concern the story that A shared. And there was a woman in her village she calls Laura, and Laura was very in love with her husband, but her husband unfortunately left her for another woman in the village she calls Denise. Begging, pleading, and crying didn't work, but desperate to bring him back, Laura decided to go to the village Baba to ask for her help. And she explains the situation, and the Baba tells her to bring her 3 items of her husband's, including, if possible, worn underwear, a strand of hair, and his used pillow. And A says, side note, the reason that they often ask for a physical thing like a strand of hair or a nail is because these things contain someone's vital life force. And if you have that in your possession, vital life force can be manipulated. So she brings these things back, and the Baba asks her, okay, what do you really want? Do you want your husband back, or do you want Denise to be punished? And Laura says, I want him to leave Denise and to come back to me and to see me as the most beautiful woman in the world. And I want him to see Denise as the ugliest woman in the world. Baba says, okay, done. What will you pay me for my services? And Laura says, well, I can pay you extremely well. And the Baba shakes her head and she says, no, I don't want money. And Laura says, well, what do you want then? And the Baba thinks for a minute and she says, are you willing to give up your ability to have a child? And Laura thinks about it and she says, yes, I am. I'm fine with not having any children. I just want my husband back. Baba had Laura spit in a glass bottle, and the deal was made. And after 3 days, her husband did come back, and he apologized profusely, and he said, I have no idea why I left my beautiful wife Laura for the ugly Denise. I'm so sorry. Please take me back. Laura, of course, wanted this, and so she happily took him back, and for a few months everything was perfect, and she could not believe that the spell worked. But a few months later, they were walking through the village when they see an extremely pregnant Denise. Her husband immediately recoils in disgust. He's like, I cannot believe I even thought to go for her. I am so unattracted to her. Thank you for taking me back. I love you so much. Laura was shocked, and she could not believe that she was pregnant, and she immediately was like, this is my husband's baby. So she storms up to Denise and she goes, whose baby is that? Denise laughed in her face and said, it's okay, dear, you can keep your husband. I already got what I wanted. Laura later found out that Denise had gone to the village Baba long before Laura ever had, because Denise couldn't have children. And apparently the ability to have children was passed from Laura to Denise through Laura going to the village Baba. A says this is a very real story from her village with real people, and she says this is a prime example of why you shouldn't mess with fate or with destiny, and what's meant to be yours will be yours. His name has been kept out of the story, but she will be seeing the comments. Let her know if you have thoughts. And if you have a spooky, scary story you think nobody would believe, please send it in. We would love to hear it.
I am the daughter of a witch, and this is my story. So this lady says that she was the only child of their small town witch. A lot of people in this town were very scared of her mom because they considered her to be a very powerful witch. She remembers that a lot of different type of people would visit her home, whether it was somebody needing help at work or like something small, to women who wanted to get revenge on their partners. Although she was surrounded by brujeria, witchcraft, her mom being a witch, she said that she respected what her mom did and her beliefs, but that she wanted nothing to do with brujeria, and she herself was a Catholic. She explains how her mother insisted that she needed to learn brujeria because this was passed down from generation to generation, and she knew that her daughter was born with the gift as well. Her mom would always tell her that she comes from a line of witches that have been in that area for a very, very long time. Her mother would always reassure her that she would never hurt people, but anytime somebody passed away unexpectedly, or if a dog passed away or pet, they would always blame her mom. When she turned 20 years old, she decided to get married to this guy who she was always in love with even when she was younger, and from that marriage came her son Carlitos. Carlitos was so kind and he was so nice, but she also noticed that Carlitos was just a little bit shorter than everybody else in his class. Now, although Carlitos was a little bit shorter than his class, she explains how he had a lot of heart. Now, at this point, she was living on the edge of the town that she grew up in because her husband owned some land there and a farm, and that is how he was making money to support them. One afternoon, she says how her husband didn't get home around the same time that he usually did, so she went outside to go look for him. Unfortunately, when she did find her husband, he was laying in the middle of the farmland, already passed away. She desperately started screaming for help, and at the same time, her neighbor thankfully was passing by, and he ran over to the land to help her, but he just confirmed what she already knew, and that was that her husband had passed away. Her husband didn't have any injuries, like anything visible to tell them why he had passed away, so they thought that it could have been a heart attack or something that they didn't know he had. The town that they lived in was so small that they didn't have like a forensic examiner, so the cops, when they got to her husband's body, they thought that he had died of natural causes, and that is what was put in the paperwork. Her mom, the witch, also said the same thing. It didn't seem like there was any foul play and that it felt like her husband had died of natural causes. She also told her that there was no brujeria or anything like that involved with his death. She was obviously devastated after her husband passed away, and that's when her mom said that her and Carlitos should go and live in her house, even if it's just for a little bit. She agreed to go and live with her mom and decided that she was going to put that house that she was living in with her husband for rent so that she can use that money to put into Carlitos' education. Unfortunately, after the passing of Carlitos' father, he became a little bit antisocial, and even though the mom tried so hard to get him to socialize with the other kids, she was never successful. She did get a little bit of high hopes though, because when the school started again, it looked like Carlitos had made some friends, but then again he would go back to being antisocial. She would ask Carlitos what's wrong, and he would tell her that all the kids in that school were so mean except for his two friends. She told Carlitos that she was going to go and talk to his teacher and take care of anything and just stop worrying about the rest of the kids. And she did end up going to that school because she knew his teacher, being that everybody in that town knew each other, and the teacher did agree to take care of Carlitos the best that she could. Now, that did work for a few months, but then everything went back to the way it was. It was so bad that she ends up getting a phone call from that teacher that told her that Carlitos was isolating himself really bad, to the point where he wasn't even hanging out with his two friends at school. She would ask Carlitos what's wrong, and he wouldn't tell her anything. So there was one day where she just had to sit him down, and she's told him, "You need to tell me what's happening. I promise I'll do anything to help you." Finally, Carlitos tells his mom that there is a kid that was bigger than him who would make fun of him because he was the son of a witch and because his dad had passed away. This is why I can't have kids, because I would be at that school fighting that little motherfucking kid. What the fuck is wrong with... Actually, no. I'd start off with the parents, but let me just continue on with the story. I'm getting heated. It's not even my kid. She did explain to Carlitos that he needs to not worry about what these people are saying, that there are always going to be people in this world who are not meant to be our friends, but that we shouldn't isolate ourselves from the entire world. It seemed like Carlitos did listen to her, because he started hanging out with his friends again, and she said for a while both of them had been fighting off people talking crap about him and her being a witch and things like that. She did honestly have high hopes that things would die down and that everything would just work itself out. So of course things got worse, and now instead of them just like hurting Carlitos with their words, things started to get physical. She will never forget the time that Carlitos got home with a black eye and how it made her feel like she wanted to hurt everybody in that town. Now she says that she was never the kind of person that would physically fight anybody, and honestly when people would physically fight, it was repulsive to her, but that's how mad and angry she was. And I know what you're thinking, where's grandma to put a curse on all these hoes? Maybe you're not thinking that, and that's just me. Unfortunately, by that point, her mom had already passed away, so it really was just her and Carlitos against all these motherfucking bitches. So one day, she decided to go up to the parents of the kids that were bullying Carlitos. It was exactly three fucking kids. And two of the parents agreed that what they were doing was wrong, and they promised that they would talk to their kids and put an end to it. Now, the main bully, Alberto was his name. His parent, his father, yeah, it wasn't a really good conversation with him. He tells her, "Is your son not man enough to resolve his own problems? Her son is not a man yet. It's a fucking kid, sir." She said that when she heard him say that, she just she felt like she needed to do something else to this guy. But she decided to respond to him and say, "Well, I think it's more your son that is not man enough because he messes with kids who are smaller than him and nobody his own size." Oh, I wish I was there for this conversation. Now, obviously, this pissed off Alberto's father, and he decided to make a promise very opposed to the other parents, and said that from that day forward, his son was gonna make Carlitos' life a living hell. Now, she says that after hearing that, she was ready to do whatever it takes to protect her son. I'd be bringing out that Ouija board. Let me talk to grandma real quick. We need to know what the fuck we gotta do. This is why I don't get powers. I would abuse them. Oh my gosh. You know what? I wouldn't even need powers. That same night, I would be walking on this motherfucker's roof. I would be standing, just staring at the house. I'm probably not even a witch, but I'm gonna scare the fuck out of them. Yes, I would. What is wrong with me? Nothing. I am protecting my child. I don't even have a child. Don't judge me. I don't have kids and I'm this pissed just listening to this story. So I cannot imagine you people who follow me that have kids. Like, ooh, you're probably pissed right now. She ends up walking away from this man and he was like foaming at the mouth, pissed. She got home and she's thinking about it, like, is he really gonna keep his promise? Are they really gonna fuck with my kid? Like, she was so scared. She didn't tell anything to Carlitos about the conversation that was had, but the following morning she did walk him all the way to school just to make sure that nothing was gonna happen to him. She went home and thought everything was fine, but then around noon she got a phone call from the school saying that they had taken Carlitos to the town clinic. They told the mom that he had gotten into a fight with the same 3 kids. She obviously knew that this wasn't a fight, but that they probably jumped her poor Carlitos. When she gets to the clinic and sees Carlitos, his face is like unrecognizable. She explains how his eyes were swollen and that he explained to his mom that he tried to defend himself as best he could, but it was 3 against 1, so obviously they beat him up. She ends up telling Carlitos to just get better, that she was gonna deal with it, but he was like, no, like, don't do anything. This happened because you went and told Carlitos' dad something, so he didn't want her to get involved because things could get worse. Now, she tried to do the right thing. She took her son to the police station, tell them that they jumped him, and the cops basically said they couldn't do anything because these were just things of kids. A kid never sent me to the hospital, so what the fuck is wrong with this police officer? She went home and she was so upset. She told her son to go to his room and just get some rest, and she was crying. She's like, I don't have a husband, I don't have my mom, I don't have a family to back me up. She sat on the living room couch and she just started crying, and then she looked up, and when she did, she was looking straight into her mom's picture. She's like, it was almost as if my mom told me to look up and look at her. She's staring at this picture of her mom, and it was almost as if her mom was telling her, you have the solution to your problem right in your hands. She admits that ever since her mom passed away, she never dared enter the room where her mom would do her witchcraft in. Basically, everything that was in that room was as her mom left it in that room when she passed away. At first, she was like, no, I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't go in there. But then she became very desperate and she's like, let me at least take a peek in there. In the center of the room, she found this booklet, almost like this big notebook, and it was like different spells and what you would need, all type of instructions and directions for all different types of work. She says that when she opened the book all the way to the middle of the pages, she found a little note that was written by her mom that said, this is just in case you want to follow my footsteps. She ends up looking through this book and she finds a spell that's basically, if you do bad to her, bad things will happen to you, but if you leave them alone, hey, you're gonna be fine. So she decided to do that for Carlitos. She ends up starting to get all of these ingredients, I guess you could say. Yeah, there was like a black chicken. She needed to get like a little jar and like dirt from a cemetery, things of that sort. So I'm not going to tell you everything, obviously, but if you know Spanish, he does say a lot of the things that she did. She does end up having to get rid of that chicken and get personal items from the people that she wanted this to go to. And she does end up doing it to those 3 family members that basically jumped Carlitos. She does everything. She gets their personal items when she goes to school with Carlitos. So she basically gets like these kids school supplies. At the end of like the instructions, it said that she needed to put all of these things in a really dark spot for like 24 hours. And she basically followed step by step everything that her mom had written down in that notebook. Very quickly, these 3 kids did end up feeling those side effects of the witchcraft. These 3 kids end up fighting each other. They're not even fighting anybody else anymore. They're fighting against each other. And the other 2 actually beat up Alberto so bad, worse than what they did to her own kid. It was so bad that the 3 kids got expelled from that school. Alberto, the big one that was basically bullying Carlitos, ended up being bedridden, and he would tell his parents that he would hear so many people in his bedroom at night. He would beg his parents to get help, but no clinic, no hospital would help this kid out, and the dad did end up suspecting that they did brujeria to his son. The dad ends up going to school and talking to Carlitos. He is saying that he is so sorry, that he's gonna talk to his son, and that they would never bully him again, and he was so sad. And basically he was desperately trying for Carlitos to forgive him. He also goes to her house and he basically asks her, hey, did you do brujeria on my son? Please, I'm so sorry. I would never let my son do this to your son again. And he's basically asking for forgiveness. However, she's like, no, I'm not a witch. I didn't do witchcraft on your son. She tells him, no, I didn't do witchcraft. I don't do witchcraft. I didn't do anything to your son. She basically tells him I had nothing to do with this, but he didn't believe her. After this, he went from, I'm sorry, sorry, I won't do this again. I'll tell my son to leave your son alone, to what the fuck, because he didn't believe when she said no. And he's starting to threaten her. He tells her that if his son passes away, he was gonna come and kill her and Carlitos. Okay, this got really dark really fucking quick. She said that same night the kid Alberto did end up passing away, and the father came to her house, kicked down the door, and was basically screaming at her and Carlitos. Her neighbors ended up hearing everything. They came, they got him out of the house, and they took him away. She ended up getting what she had buried out so that the other two kids, wouldn't get this bad. However, she does end up doing a different type of work for that man so that he could leave them alone, and she went to bury it in the cemetery, I believe is what she said. Okay, it got really, really dark. She basically did this because she was asking dark forces to get rid of the man who was trying to bring harm to her and her kid. She says that the town started rumors about her. They would whisper every time she would pass by, and that they all thought that she was the cause of this little boy passing away. Her neighbors ended up coming to her because the day of the funeral, when they were burying that man's son, out loud in front of everybody, the dad had said that he was gonna get revenge and that he was gonna come after her. Unfortunately, the dad didn't get a chance to do that because apparently right after saying that, he collapsed at that funeral and passed away. People said that he had a heart attack. The entire town is convinced that everything happened because of her, but they have no proof. After that, nobody else bothered Carlitos or her again, and she promised that she would never do brujeria unless she really needed to. Quite honestly, it didn't even matter if she did do brujeria or didn't, because the entire town now placed her in the same place that her mom was, and she became the town witch. I don't know if I would go that far, but also, I'm not a parent, and I was angry throughout this whole story. I was ready to pretend to be a witch and walk on this man's roof. I mean, I would torment him, make him think that I was, but this story got real dark. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.
Someone submitted me a story saying that witchcraft unalived 3 of his friends. This story is one of the craziest stories I have ever gotten, so there is a trigger warning because there are unalivings in this, a lot of them. Today's submitter did tell me I could use his real name. His name is Danny, but I will be changing the name of his friends out of respect for them and their families. By the way, I did do a much longer version of this story. It is already up, so put 2 and 2 together, please. In 2016, Rachel, Kayla, Danny, and Xavier spent the entire day hanging out. They capped the night out with a movie, and they were all exhausted, so they all went and stayed at Kayla's place. As they sat around Kayla's house rehashing the film, the conversation drifted to witchcraft. Kayla then mentioned that her aunt practiced dark magic and actually had used a spell to calm Kayla's fear of working at a rough gas station in a rough part of town. Kayla then offers to do the same spell on Rachel, who is often anxious of being alone at night. To Danny's surprise, Rachel agreed immediately, which was weird because she usually shut down at any talk of the occult whatsoever. They then go into a back bedroom of Kayla's house, and this really creeped Danny out because this room for some reason just gave him an odd feeling. But this is where they were going to do the spell. So Kayla brings in 3 large black candles. They were really large black candles, and she sets them on the floor in a triangle, and then she has Rachel sit in the middle of this triangle, and she has her sit cross-legged on the floor. Kayla then dims the light, and she asks Danny if he wants to join, and Danny says no, he doesn't want to be a part of this. Kayla then begins chanting, but before she even begins chanting, the candle lights start to sputter and flicker. They're flickering back and forth, left and right, almost like somebody is literally moving the flame back and forth. This really freaks Danny out, so he decides that he's gonna go in the kitchen, but 10 minutes later, all 3 of them burst into the kitchen and they are screaming. Kayla's face was chalk white and her whole body was shaking, and no one would say what they had seen. The terror in their eyes said enough though, because they looked absolutely terrified. This really scared Danny how terrified they looked. So Danny tries to ask them again, what is going on? And they will not answer him. So finally he's just like, you know what, fine, forget it. Let's just go to sleep and we'll talk about this tomorrow. Kayla and Danny took the upstairs bedroom while Rachel and Xavier took the downstairs bedroom, and they slept on a pull-out couch. So they're all sleeping when around 3 a.m. Danny wakes up to hearing a door on the first floor slam violently. And then he hears this pounding sound, and someone is running up the steps. Now this pounding stops right in front of Kayla's door, so there is someone standing outside of Kayla's door. Suddenly the temperature in the room drops, and Kayla and Danny are just staring at this door, absolutely terrified. They cannot move. Danny then decides that he's going to jump up and he's going to try to shut the door, so he jumps up, he goes over to the door, and the door, before he can even touch it, just slams shut. Then it opens again, slams shut again. It does this for 20 seconds. Each time it slams shut, it does it harder and harder and harder. After the 20 seconds is over and the door stops slamming shut, they are just absolutely terrified. They cannot sleep. So they're sitting in bed just waiting for the sun to come up. And as soon as the sun comes up and it's peeking through the blinds, they then decide that it's safe to get up. When they go downstairs, they find that Xavier is making breakfast and Rachel is just on her phone. And Rachel is being really quiet, so she's not really saying anything. She seemed kind of spooked a little bit, but Xavier is acting like absolutely nothing happened. Then Danny asked them, did you guys hear that last night? And both of them look at them like, what are you talking about? They're kind of looking at them like they're crazy. And they're like, you didn't hear that loud banging sound? And they're like, no. They ate breakfast in silence and then they left, tension hanging in the air. He said for the first time ever when they left that day, none of them hugged each other. And that was the first time that had ever happened. So that day, Danny was actually supposed to babysit his nephew, but he got a text from his sister saying that he no longer needed to babysit. So he decides that he's going to go home and take a nap. 40 minutes later, Danny gets a phone call from Kayla, and Kayla is absolutely hysterical. She is sobbing her eyes out and he can't get her to calm down. He does eventually get her to calm down, and when he does, she tells him something horrifying. She tells him that Xavier was riding a motorcycle, he hit a car, he flew head first, and just like that, his friend Xavier was gone. A week after Xavier's funeral, Rachel and Kayla come over to Danny's house. They had not talked about what happened that night that they did the spell at all. But while they're at his house, they break down and they tell him exactly what happened, and it's horrifying. They tell him that after he had stepped out, the candlelight froze, and suddenly they hear a bunch of whispers in the room, and not like a little bit of whispers, like hundreds of whispers. After they hear these whispers, they see this huge shadowy figure coming from the corner of the room. On his chest is letters, and it spells out said that this thing let out a blood-curdling scream, and then they bolted out of the room. Now, as they are telling Danny this, Danny has this horrible feeling come over him, like this heavy weight, like this is not it yet, like this is not done. Whatever is happening right now is not over, but he's trying to comfort them, so he's giving them words of comfort. After this, they're constantly checking on each other. They're trying to help each other out, make each other feel better. Their friend had just passed away. It was really hard for them, but life would not go back to normal. On June 5th, 2016, Danny is at his nephew's birthday, and apparently he had fallen asleep at his nephew's birthday because he had a nightmare there that he will never forget. In his dream, Xavier is crouched in a corner of a dark room when suddenly he sees these black hands grab Xavier and pull him away as Xavier is screaming, "Danny, help me!" Danny could see him, but it was like there was this wall that was keeping him from reaching Danny. Then Danny turns around in his dream and he sees Rachel sobbing her eyes out. He remembers running up to her and just hugging her. He woke up soaked in sweat, absolutely terrified, and he calls Rachel. Because of the dream, he is really worried about her, but she assures him that she is fine, but he just cannot shake this feeling of like hopelessness and deep sadness. He said that as he was writing this, he could still hear all of their screams and picture their faces. A week later, Rachel goes out with her friends from Miami. The next morning on June 12th, Danny's cousin calls him and says, "You need to turn on the news." On the news was the Pulse nightclub, and Rachel was unfortunately there, and her life was taken in that. The hug in his dream now made horrifying sense. Two of his friends are now gone, and he's just trying to make logical sense of everything. But it all points back to that night, and no matter how much he tries to ease his mind, he feels completely shattered and broken. After this, Kayla spirals into a complete depression. She's hearing voices at night, and she's seeing things in the dark. He even stayed over there. Her family was trying to intervene. Nothing was helping. She just got worse. One day, Kayla snaps. She lunges at a responding officer with a sharp object. And unalives her. 3 vibrant lives, Xavier, Kayla, and Rachel, taken all because of this candlelight ritual. Danny still struggles with a lot of guilt. He feels like he could have stopped them, like dragged them out of the room, told them that they couldn't do it, made them stop somehow. He then said that witchcraft is not a game. Every spell invites spirits that you cannot control. Consequences can be. And he said that if sharing his story even helps one person not make this mistake, sharing it is worth the pain of remembrance. He also wants to know if anybody knows what the dream with his friend Xavier meant. I think he's really worried that his friend Xavier is in a place that is not good, and he wants to know if you guys can maybe just jump in and throw in some suggestions or thoughts or what you think is going on here. And he really hopes that the story can help one person, even just one person, from not messing with the occult. This story is so absolutely devastating. 3 lives were taken so unfortunately and tragically. I cannot even imagine the pain that you have gone through, Danny. I am so incredibly sorry that you went through this, but there is something that you need to know. And I've said it before. I said it on my other place, and I will say it here. This was not your fault at all. You said that you thought that you were a coward for not stopping them. You couldn't have stopped them. It was not your responsibility to stop them. And how could you have possibly known what would come of this? So please stop blaming yourself. And to all of the people who are watching this, if you could please just type something down in the comments, maybe to show show him some support or just give your suggestions, that would be absolutely wonderful. But with that being said, I am going to do my favorite part now, which is the shout outs. My first shout out is going to Nisi NRP. You said that you love the fact that I do shout outs. Well, I'm going to give you a shout out because you are so sweet and your comment was so sweet. Thank you so much for supporting me. I'm so glad that you like my videos. That means the entire world to me. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Thank you for just showing love. It means the absolute world to me and I love you for that. Next shout out is going to Bella Haynes. You said that my stories are your favorite stories to listen to. That means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for saying that. You have no idea how much I loved that comment. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Thank you for just showing love. I appreciate it more than you could possibly know and I love you. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa and I tell true scary stories on here every single night that you guys submit to me. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? I need you to keep sending me your scary stories. I need you to have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
I know it's pretty late, but that just means that you can go get you a snack, kick your feet up, rub your feet together, and get ready for story time before you go to sleep. So there's this guy, let's call him Dre, and I know I might be whispering, that's because baby girl's sleeping, I don't want to wake her. Anyways, Dre is Nigerian, but he's a Nigerian that grew up in the hood. And this is Dre's story, this is Dre's submission. Now, Dre was Nigerian, of course, like his parents was from Nigeria, they had, they spoke the language, had the accent and everything. But because Drake grew up in the hood, he wasn't really close to his Nigerian roots. Like, as far as, like, witchcraft and stuff. Of course, he ate the food. Y'all get it. Anyway, Dre started hanging out with the wrong people, right? The wrong crowd from school. And long story short, he started robbing people. He was catching licks left and right. And this is the story that made Dre stop catching licks. One day, Dre went to the park with his friends to play basketball. After they finished playing basketball, they're wrapping it up. Dre's walking back to his car. His friends pull off, but he stayed because he wanted to. So he stayed in the parking lot. He sparked up and he just chilled for a second and he did what he had to do. Now, across the street from the basketball court in the parking lot that he was in was an ATM. And as Dre is about to pull off, this lady just comes out the ATM. And from where Dre was looking, because it's those type of ATMs that's like kind of like glass, she took out a lot of money. So Dre's like, I got me a lick. So boom, Dre put on the shiesty. He put on a black hoodie. Mind you, this was nighttime, so it was dark. Now, I should say that Dre only caught licks off people that are harmless because he doesn't want to harm anybody. He really just want to get some money or some phones or whatever. The lady looked like she's not really going to fight back. So Dre walks up to her, like in front of her, and stops her because she was walking. And Dre says to the lady, hey, ma'am, I'm not even going to lie. If you don't want to get going right now, you got to give me all that money you just took out. Now, Dre's fully prepared to put up a little fight. He's not really going to hurt her. But she doesn't say anything. She just stares at him. The stare was a little scary for a second, but he's like, maybe she didn't hear me. He's like, ma'am, give me your money. And so the lady is still staring at him. She's not saying anything. She's not running. She ain't fighting. She's just staring at him. And so he pretends like he's about to pull something out of his hoodie. He ain't pulling nothing out. So the lady's like, type shit, and hands him over her bag. He takes the bag. He's like, type shit, and goes to his car. And the whole time he's running towards his car, the lady is just staring at him go. And for a second, he's thinking, yo, is she the feds? So he's like, yeah, I really got to lay low because she might be the feds. So he goes to the car. He drives off. As he's driving, he looks inside the purse, and the money that he thought was there wasn't there anymore. So he's like, yo, where's that money she just pulled out? I watched her put the money in her purse, but the money's not there. So he's like, all right, bro, this was pointless. So he opens the window as he's driving, and he throws the purse out. And as he's driving, there's a bus stop coming up, and there's a red light. So he has to stop at the red light. And guess who he sees at the red light? The lady. But that's weird because he's driving. The lady was on foot. He's like, that's impossible. That's impossible that this lady is at this bus stop right now because I left her all the way back there. He's like, all right, whatever. I'm wildin'. Let me go home. He goes home thinking everything's going to be okay. Oh, but no, baby, because over the next few weeks, he's seeing this lady everywhere. Whether it's the corner store, whether it's Walmart, whether it's school, he is seeing her everywhere. And the thing is, she's not saying anything. He would literally just see her walk past and just look at him. He told his friends about it, but his friends don't believe him because whenever he sees this lady and he tries to show his friends, nobody's there. It gets so bad that he's seeing this lady in his dreams. At first, it was some dreams, and then it was like every other day, and then it was every night. Now, mind you, he's going through this, and he's Nigerian, and as much as he wants to tell his parents, that means he would have to tell his parents that he robbed somebody. At this point, this is getting bad because it's about a month now, and it's to the point where sometimes he'll see her in mirrors. He's talking about this to his friends all of the time, to the point where it's starting to be concerning. Like, his friends are starting to be worried about him. Of course, he wasn't hanging with the right crowd, so they kind of like stopped being friends with him. And so the fact that they stopped being friends with him made him crash out even more because his life is falling apart now and he doesn't even know how to explain it. And whenever he tries to explain it, he sounds crazy and nobody believes him. So at this point, he's really crashing out. It's so bad to the point where he's trying to keep himself up because he does not want to keep dreaming about her. And so it got to a point where he's like talking to her, but not her. He's like questioning her, like, what do you want from me? I'm sorry. I will never rob again. And this would happen in the most random places because he's losing his mata. So one day his family noticed that he ain't been out his room in like 2 days. So his siblings decided to go check up on him. And when they went in his room, that young man was in bad shape. And he's like blabbering and nobody's understanding what he's saying. He is acting unhinged. So his siblings went to his parents and his parents came in the room. Ultimately, Dre was so bad that his parents ended up having to take him to a psych ward. When he got to the psych ward, they gave him medicine to sleep. So now he's like sleeping a long time and he's seeing this lady. So whenever he wakes up, it's even worse. Finally, he works up the courage to tell his parents what happened. And so the moment he told his parents the full story, they understood. They immediately signed him out of that psych ward and they sent him back to the village. They booked him a flight with the quickness. When he got back to Nigeria with his parents, they had to do a lot of work on him, like a lot. And come to find out, he ended up robbing a lugau, a witch. That witch's magic was pretty freaking strong because it took a lot to get it all off of him. He had to alternate between church and root work. After a couple of months of being in Nigeria, he was finally back to normal. Dre says he will never, ever in his life catch another lick ever again. Dre told me to tell the YNs nowadays that it's all fun and games until you have to deal with something spiritually. You can't fight your way out of that one. You can't shoot your way out of that one. Anyways, make sure you guys are following me on Instagram in case they take this app away. Yeah, because how else are you going to get your stories? Exactly, you get it.
Why is it always the grandmothers? Somebody said, my sister went to visit her grandmother in South Africa and came back acting like a completely different person. And what they found hidden inside the sister's hat still gives everybody nightmares till this day. I am back with another spooky story. And we are back in South Africa, baby. We're gonna call the person who submitted this story Ayanda. Ayanda said that she wanted to report a spooky story that happened in South Africa. She's actually British, but this happened on a trip back home with her sister and mother. She says, and my sister's grandmother tried to take my sister's soul. So Ayanda said that they went back home at the beginning of the year. Everything was good. They stayed at their grandmother's house as usual. Relatives would come to visit or they would go to them. And Ayanda said that she's never been keen on visiting relatives that she doesn't really talk to. But her grandmother enjoys showing them off. Even the grandmother seems to have kept her distance from certain people. So Ayanda is the oldest sibling. She has a little sister and 2 brothers. Ayanda does have a different dad than the other 3, but that's never been an issue. Ayanda's mom left the other kid's dad a while ago because of cheating allegations. They've all been together as a family and the mom is happier now. However, the stepdad's family has never been fond of Ayanda's mother. And his mother, that would be Ayanda's sister's grandmother, would go out of her way to make her mother's life difficult and uncomfortable. She said, you can only imagine. Anyway, one day, one of her sisters wanted to go visit her grandmother, her father's mother. So her grandmother arranged the pickup time and off they went. She was gone for about 6 to 7 hours. And when she finally came back, Ayanda said that wasn't my sister anymore. That was not her sister. Her attitude was off. Her attitude was off and unexplainable. Even the mother told them, like, don't worry about her. They told everybody to ignore the sister and that she will take care of her because the sister at the time did have some health complications and the mom was the only person. Everybody just said, okay. That night, they had a family meal and eventually everybody went to bed. Ayanda's sister and mother slept in the same room. Ayanda slept in her aunt's room with her aunt and her daughter. And before everybody went to sleep, set alarms for the house. Electric gates were sealed, shut, and shouldn't have moved unless tampered with from the inside of the house. Well, suddenly, during the night, there was an alert that the electric gate that you had to open from the inside, it was open. Was somehow wide open. They're looking through the window and yup, the gate is wide open, as if someone had let a car into the yard. That spooked everyone, but everybody just brushed it off. Next day, Ayanda's sister's tone and attitude had completely shifted. She argued with at least 3 people before midday. Again, people is not really thinking much into it. She tends to act a little bipolar sometimes. But as the day went on, her energy changed again. This time she went silent completely, like she wouldn't speak to nobody. That's when the grandmother noticed something wrong, so she pulled her mother aside and said, is this normal? This is what you deal with every day? The mom said yes, and the grandma said no. Absolutely not. Something is off with that girl. Now, that particular grandmother is a prayerful woman. When she says prayerful, she means godly. Yes, they're African, but they have strong ancestral ties. At that moment, her grandmother said, I need to go pray. She left, came back, and this time she had a man with her. Someone nobody knew from church. They were Catholics through and through. The man looked at everybody and said, grandmother told me names, but I don't have faces to those names. He started saying things that this man shouldn't have known because this is their first time meeting this man. There's no way that the grandmother would have disclosed that information to him. Then the man looked at Ayanda, her granny, and her mother to the back of the house and said, I sense darkness in this house, and only one person carries it. They didn't always carry it, but now they do. This story is about to be 4 minutes long, and I know you guys hate part 2s, but I am gonna have to do a part 2 because this story is so long. Also, so much happened, like, I'm actually scared. You guys will actually never believe what they found. Anyway, leave a comment for part 2. This is one of the craziest stories. Like, your own family member tried to take you out. Okay, let's get straight into part 2. So the man picked up some sand, wrapped it into a red cloth, and threw it into a ceramic bowl. Then suddenly the sack ignited into flames. Ayanda is wondering, what the hell is this? And then he asked Ayanda's mother to say her sister's grandmother's name. And sure enough, she did. The man started chanting some words that they couldn't understand. Ayanda said at this point her heart is in her throat. He told the mom to go back to get the hat that the sister wore to the grandmother's house. She got the hat, brought it back, and he asked her to flip the hat inside out. And when she did, they found a seed. It looked like a mango seed that had been sucked dry. It was hairy and dry, and y'all, the creepiest part, on the flip side of the seed, it had a face. And the face wasn't just drawn on the seed, no, it was carved into it. Ayanda's mother immediately drops it and the seed catches on fire on its own. And when the mango seed bursted into flames, everybody was startled. But the prophet reassured them that everything was fine. He told her mother to repeat after him. The word sounded native, but the meaning was basically a prayer. He was making the mother say the sister's grandmother's name in a way that sent anything she tried back to her, like a spiritual Uno reverse card. The man warned them that she would know something had been done to protect them, and she might become even more persistent, so stand your ground. Yanda was like, heck yeah. He gave them some oils and told them to use them and to find ways to anoint the little sister with the oils. So fast forward to the night before they left. It felt like nobody could sleep in that house. Something just told them to stay awake and pray until dawn. They had an early flight, so the house stayed lively through the night anyway, with people packing and praying. Come morning, just as they were about to leave, the sister's grandmother drives up the driveway. and a sense of dread just filled the air. The grandmother quickly handed everybody sea salt, holy essentials, and some blessed water that she got from the church. She told everybody to stand by the door so she could say a prayer of protection while sprinkling salt and holy water by the door. They all rushed to the door before the lady got out the car. She parked way behind the house by the garage, and she had no idea what everybody in the house was up to. Y'all, this woman came bearing gifts. She had cake. Ayanda was like, nope. Ayanda put holy water and salt on that cake right away. Of course, nobody ate the cake. They gave it to the chickens. 2 days later, they were back home when they got a call from their granny. She said that the prophet had come back and announced that he knew the woman had returned. Again, even though no one told him this. And he said there was actually a reason he knew. Well, he knew because she had left something there when she stopped by that was not supposed to be there. Come back for part 2. I'm literally just joking. So he went to the spot where the car had been parked, picked up a stone and took it to the back of the yard. Then he asked, where's the cake? And the grandma's nervous, tells him like the cake is in the chicken pen. They had tried to give the cake to the chickens, but even the chickens wouldn't eat the cake. They came back and that cake was untouched and whole. So the prophet took the cake and one of the chickens back to the spot where he found the stone and began praying. Ayanda said that there's actually a video of this, but she's just too afraid to show anyone. She was actually told not to even mention it. He placed the chicken on top of the stone, and as the prayer intensified, the chicken started convulsing, literally to death. Coming from its eyes, the cake itself began to melt and lose form, revealing a massive block of salt in the center of the cake, about the size of a tennis ball. The prophet continued praying until the salt block melted as well. He goes on to explain that if the sister had eaten that cake, she would have either taken her own life or died from unexplained circumstances. Basically, her sister wasn't supposed to make it out of that trip alive. That explains all the health issues that she had been having, but days of fasting and prayer from everyone, the sister had become the healthiest and the happiest that anybody had ever seen her. And everybody in that family was just healthy, no more health complications, all through the power of prayer. South Africa, y'all really do got some wicked people out there. Thank you guys so much for watching the spooky stories. If you want more spooky stories, please be free to follow me right here on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram just so that I know that it's real, duh. And subscribe to my YouTube channel for longer, better, and spookier stories. I mean, it is my birthday month, so go ahead and subscribe, you guys. And also follow me on every platform. Like I say at the end of every single video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.